I'm glad the oak tree was there in hindsight, because if it wasn't, I would definitely have gone through his living room. I want to talk a little bit about my very first car, which was a 2000 Shelby Edition Mustang. It was a black car, gold stripes, beautiful car. I was definitely that Mustang kid growing up and in high school. I didn't start out that way. I wasn't sure what I wanted exactly when I first started looking at cars. I was into cars. I got to looking at them from watching Dukes of Hazzard. So I really wanted a '69 Charger. Obviously, that's not a practical vehicle for a kid's first car. So started looking at other things, and my parents kind of turned me on to Mustangs. So I have no idea why your parents would think it would be a good idea to get a 16 or actually 15-year-old a Mustang, but that's what happened. It all started, my parents said that I needed to contribute a little bit of the money for getting said first car. And I was at a gas station right up the street from where I lived. It's called Pop's Country Store. So we go in, I'm going to get a Slim Jim and a Coke or something. Mom's talking to the guy, the clerk, who's also coincidentally the owner. And they get talking back and forth. She's like talking to him about jobs and how busy they are. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm actually looking for some help." And she's like, "Well, he's looking for a job." And I perk up. I'm like, "I am?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, he's been looking for a job." And he's like, "Oh, great. Well, when can he start?" And I'm kind of walking up to the counter at this point. She's like, "He can start right now." I'm like, what is happening? Long story short, she left me there, and I worked, and that's kind of how I started earning some money towards my first car. And it started, I forget if I was 14 or 15 or whatever, but she'd take me to work and come back and pick me up later, and I earned some money and put some of that toward it. And when I turned 15 in March, and then at Christmas, they bought me this 2000 Mustang GT. When I first got this car, I lived in Douglasville, the west side of Atlanta, and we'd just go and cruise around, and everything that high school kids do. So I quickly became that Mustang guy. The same guy that, the kids that drive the Brodozers now, and the trucks with the Carolina squat with the goofy back end dragon. I felt like, I was one of those guys, but, 10 or 12 years ago, just with a Mustang. And God, I'm getting older. I guess it was a little bit longer than 10 or 12 years ago. We all like to think we're younger than we are, I think. So we're cruising around, and I come up, and I'm in my car that I've had, I've just gotten my license, just a couple months. I come up behind this guy, and I was jealous of him because I had seen him driving around, and we were kind of cruising the same streets, and he had what we came to call the Fobra. He had a Mustang GT, but it had like the 0304 Terminator front bumper, rear bumper. It looked like a full-on Terminator Cobra, and it had the Bassani off-road X-pipe, and it sounded, raspy and nasty. And I pull up behind him, and he's got, I mean, if was a Mustang douche, this was the guy. He had the earrings and the headband, and he sticks his hand out and like this, like, come get some. And I did, and he whipped my butt pretty good. I later would get a car that would take him out, and it's funny because we're friendly now, and he's gotten older and more mature, and so have I. But we look back at those times, and it was pretty funny. We were that Mustang idiot crowd that everybody makes fun of now. Now it's turned into Mustanging people, and all the crowds fear the ponies. So I guess we were the ones that started that, because we definitely acted a fool and didn't know how to drive, and we were those people. I had already been racing. This was 2000. I started racing in 2003. Got it at Christmas. I got my license in March, and I had already, I was a race car driver. I knew how to drive. I got a 5-speed, even though the car I was driving at that point was, basically a glorified go-kart. It was just 1 speed. I didn't know how to drive a clutch, and the guy that's a race car driver is supposed to know how to do all that. But so that was a little embarrassing for a little while, trying to learn how to drive a clutch. I burned a clutch up in the car in like the first month of having it, even just driving my parents around. So it happens to all of us. Eventually, after 6 months, that's how long you had to have your license to be able to drive your friends around. Then I started driving my friends around, and I quickly learned that if you turn the traction control off, you can do burnouts and slide the car around sideways and do donuts. And that's, once I discovered it, that's what I did. Things that you can't do in your race car because it's not a manual transmission you can go and do on the street. Coincidentally, I really never got in trouble doing any of that until I wrecked it. So I had me, a buddy of mine in the passenger seat, and a buddy in the back seat. I think just one. But we're going around, and I had to be home for curfew at midnight, and it was like 11:55, and I was like 8 or 9 minutes away. So I'm hauling butt, trying to get home, coming around a turn, and I think that I have the traction control off because that was kind of part of my ritual of starting the car every time I did it. So start the car up, turn the traction control off, that way in case I decided I needed to do any burnouts in that time that I was driving the car, I was able to do that. So I go around the corner, car starts to kick out sideways, and I lay in the throttle, traction control comes on, and it basically turns because I'm counter steering at that point. Rear tires quit spinning, car's gonna go the direction tires are pointing. For me, that was the captain of the police's front yard. So basically I come off the road, I hit a mailbox hits the windshield, down into a ditch, headlights come up, and then there's this big oak tree sitting right in front of me. So I hit the oak tree. I'm probably running, I don't know, I had slowed down a decent amount at that point just from the oh crap moment that was kind of ensuing there. And I probably hit it going 35 or 40 and flipped over into his yard, which I'm glad the oak tree was there in hindsight, because if it wasn't, I would definitely have gone through his living room. He did not wake up during this whole transaction of time. When the Georgia State Patrol got there, they actually had to knock on his door and get him out. He came out in his bathrobe and greeted us and was very confused. But that was the first crash I'd ever had. I was pretty, surprised, as you might imagine. I got out real quick and made sure my buddies were okay and got them out real quick. And we turned the car back over. I have no idea why, but we thought that would be a good idea to just go ahead and flip it back over. My nose was bleeding pretty bad in my lip because I guess when we hit the ditch or maybe right when we hit the tree, the airbag didn't deploy immediately. So I went forward and smacked my face off the steering wheel and came back and hit it. When I was coming back for round 2, then the airbag deployed. So I got to get both. I had, airbag burn up both of my arms and on my face, and it was just a really not good situation. But yeah, wrecked my first car into the captain of the police's front yard, and that was the first time I ever heard my mom swear. She pulled up. Of course, I called her after the whole thing went down, and she called the police. So they all kind of show up all at the same time, and she's like, "I can't believe you wrecked your damn car." And I didn't know my mom could swear. Of course, now she even drinks wine. It was crazy, but never knew that mom wasn't perfect until that moment. But she was quite upset with good reason. And that car met its demise at my hands. It was pretty cool, I guess. It was a neat car up until that point. It was a special edition. But as any good parents would do, when I crashed my Mustang and my parents were so upset, they let me get another one. Why wouldn't they? They got me. Well, helped me find another one that was actually a little bit nicer, had a little less miles, the same year. It wasn't a Shelby edition, but it was a laser red GT. I was a brat then, so I hated the color, and I didn't like the interior color combo. It was tan, and I really like black, but I was like, the only way I'll have this car is if we have the Cobra R hood on it. So we got the Cobra R hood. I just look back and I was such a douche then. But that's what we did, and we put the hood on it, and it had a chin spoiler and a grill delete, and I kept that one for a little while too. And then I sold it to my buddy Zach, and he KO'd it in the mall parking lot with his grandmother in the car. So both of my first 2 cars have long been crushed. They were both really, really nice cars. Any kid would have been lucky to have either one of them, and even though I wasn't nearly as appreciative as I should have been for the second car.